Hi, you guys. I'm Rylin, and I wanted to talk to you today about what it looks like to survive a quantum leap. I feel like there's a lot of us in the collective right now that are kind of doing this for the first time. And I, for me, it was as if I had stepped into a portal and I didn't realize that that's what had happened for the first like 3 quarters of it. And then I look back and I'm like, people talk all the time about what it looks like to go through a portal, but I had no idea what that meant. And to me, going through the portal, that initiation into a quantum leap, it felt like I, from one day to the next, just kept being led to like the next puzzle piece. It was like one day I listened to a podcast that talked about the energetics of going all the way in. And so I started to practice that. And then the next day I'm led to the next podcast. Or my mom tells me a quote from a book that she read. And it was like piece after piece after piece just fell so perfectly in line that finally, at that 3 quarters of the way point through, I look back and I'm like, wait a second, I really do feel like I've been sucked in this portal. And I almost have this visual of like Star Wars when they're in the ship and they see like the light speed passing by so quickly. Like that's what it felt like with information and processing emotion. So, anyways, today I wanted to kind of break down step by step what surviving this quantum leap has looked like for me up till this point, because I will be super honest with you right now. I am still kind of in the middle of it. I feel like I'm at the tail end. I can feel this energy of things are about to really land for me and pick up. So this is a guide that I wish that I had from the very beginning that I hope will be able to help you if you're feeling like you're maybe going through that initiation or you're stuck on a step. That this can be your permission slip to keep going and keep believing in yourself, because whew, going through a quantum leap will require you to rid yourself of old identities, old ways of thinking and being that just simply cannot survive the version of you who gets to live the life that you're looking for. And they are so hard because I heard this quote that says, "It feels like death because it is." The death of your old self, and it hurts. But with every death comes rebirth, right? So my intention for this video, for this guide, is for you to survive going through that death and rebirth process and know that I see you, because this is hard but rewarding work. So part one is the call to leap. This is when you're even feeling those first inklings that you really want to go all in and make this change. For me, it's that I have been working a 9 to 5 job that does not light me up in any way. I realized that I was waking up, and I woke up one morning and the first thing that I did in my head was go, no. And I immediately was like, oh, that's not good. Like, I need to change something because I cannot wake up every day with that being my first thought. And so I'd say that actually was my call to leap. That was the shift that was like, okay, I'm doing something and I'm doing something about it now. And so what I really wanted was to be making money in a way that felt more aligned and exciting, and I wanted to be making more money. And I also wanted to be living somewhere in a different environment that felt expansive, where the people around me were feeding into the good energy, to this expansive, growth oriented energy that I'm trying to cultivate in my own life. And so I needed to get specific. I needed to figure out, okay, I want to be making this amount of money and I want to be living in this apartment. Those were kind of the statements that I was laying down. I even went and I toured this apartment in downtown Salt Lake City that I walked in, and it was a full body hell yes. It lit me up. I could see myself living there. But the thing about it was that I was literally making like 0.5 times the income that was required to live there. And I had absolutely zero idea where I was going to figure out how I was going to draw in the abundance to be able to afford living there. And so here's where we begin with I needed to release the old identity of me, because past me would be like, well, that sucks. Like, there's no way that this is going to happen. But I decided right then and there, no. This is where I told the universe, I have no idea how I'm going to do this, but I am open. I am open to it happening to me. I am open to figuring out how I can work with you in making this happen to me. And it wasn't just about the apartment and the money. This was about my life. This was about who I knew that I could be. I was so done playing it small, living in environments that were not contributing to the version of me that I know that I'm capable of being, to living up to the potential that I know is within me. And that's the thing about quantum leaping is, in the beginning, I thought that the quantum leap was that I was going to get the money and the apartment, and then that was it. Yes, I quantum leaped. I did it. And I'm kind of skipping ahead here, but what I realized throughout the whole process up until now is that this quantum leaping, it's never actually about the thing that you want at the end of it. It's about who you become in the process, which leads me into part 2, the crumbling of the old self. So immediately, fears just started surfacing. Can I really afford this? Am I being super naive for wanting so much so fast? Like, who do I think that I am? Like, things just can't be too good to be true. My nervous system was activated every single day. It was like the second that I decided that these old ways of thinking were no longer serving me, they kicked into overdrive in trying to get me to see the validity in them. And you guys, this is where not very many people survive these quantum leaps, because these thoughts are so convincing, especially when we are so conditioned to see the world from such a logical, practical standpoint, right? Like, the thought when you have little money in your bank account, the thought of trusting that it's going to be okay and that you can release and believe that you are worthy as you are for good things to happen to you, it seems foolish. When I'm looking at my resume and seeing that it's not on paper that impressive, I don't have this big network around me of people who are just chomping at the bit to hire me. I don't have skill sets around social media to be able to just take off on there. Like, there are so many things that look like I'm just destined to fail. And so this leads into what step 3 is, which is radical recalibration. This is the part where you take all of these parts of your old self and you face them and you actively catch them, and you stand there at the choice point of, I can either continue to give in to this old self and say, yeah, okay, that is really scary, that doesn't feel safe, I'm going to stay over here where it's safe. Or you can decide to be radical and say, no, I do not think that way anymore. I do not entertain the thoughts that tell me that my desires are too big and that miracles can't happen to me, and that me creating this bubble of safety around these scary action steps that I want to take is stupid. That is so radical, and that is grunt work, because those thoughts come up all day, every day when you're in this portal, and it was non-stop where thoughts would come up and I would just have to practice. I cultivated this skill of catching them and saying no, actively, sometimes out loud, no, I do not entertain those thoughts anymore. And then you follow it up with, the version of me now believes that this is possible for me. The version of me now trusts. I trust myself, I trust the universe, I trust that I'm going to be caught. And then this recalibrating isn't just about the catching the thoughts and then thinking better ones. It's also about taking action through the fear towards the desired outcome. So when I'm thinking about this apartment that I want, yes, I'm visualizing it. I'm sitting in visualizations where I'm standing in the apartment, just in my own body, feeling the confidence of having all of the money in my bank account to easily and comfortably afford living there. And so in those visualizations, I'm embodying that version of me. But I can't just do that while I'm in that peak state of visualization. I also need to be cultivating those feelings as I go throughout my day. So that means that I was needing to take action in creating these things that I can put out into the world to show that I am trying to step into the version of me who shows up like the person who is able to sustain the quantum leap that I'm even calling in, right? People talk a lot about taking aligned action. What is aligned action? That's when you have this small thought come to you, an idea to do something, and instead of just letting it be a fleeting thought that passes, you take action on it. And it might be the tiniest things. I always thought that aligned action meant to be, I have to start a business, I have to create a website. No, aligned action can be as small as calling somebody because you have a thought to share something with them. And instead of just not doing it, you decide, no, I had this thought come through and I trust that it came through for a reason, so I'm going to take action on it. And you start to build that trust within yourself that you can show up. Because whatever it is that you're calling in, it's not just going to be that because you are thinking positively that things are just going to fall into your lap. There is that action piece too. And for me, that was just kind of a hard lesson to have to learn. I really did want to just believe that things could be so easy, which they can, but it also requires you to grow, and growth isn't always the easiest thing. And so now I want to talk about part 4, which is possibly when the leap doesn't go as planned, which for me, I applied for the apartment and it was crazy because I knew that I was going to get denied because of the income requirement. I knew that had not fallen into place yet, but I was taking that action step and putting the energy out into the universe that this is what I want. And I actually ended up discovering that I had a write-off from a rental that I lived in like 3 years ago that I had never once been told about. So I called the place that I lived and I was like, hey, like I've never heard of this. Why do I have a write-off? And they told me, they're like, oh, that's really strange. I have your receipt that you paid in full here, so we'll get that cleared. So I still have yet to see the full reason why that happened, why so far this apartment appeared to be falling through, which is where I'm being super real with you guys right now, that things are not always going to go as planned. And this is where those thoughts from like step 2 are going to come in of, I could have easily let that tell me, okay, see, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. You are being absolutely crazy. You're asking for too much too fast. And me again, having to say, no, I trust that this is happening for some reason that I just can't yet see. And when that text came through from the apartment, I was around family and I just went into the other room and I cried and I let myself feel the grief of the disappointment of getting a text that literally point blank says like, this thing that you're working so hard for, we're saying no, basically. And it was then that I realized old me would have completely spiraled, but new me let myself feel that sadness while also saying, I know that this is happening for a reason that I just can't see yet. And again, this is another one of those choice points. You run into a lot of them in a quantum leap where I needed to decide, am I going to let myself fall back into this old identity where I use that type of evidence around me as proof that it's not going to work for me, that those types of things don't happen to me? Or am I going to be radically and almost delusional in saying, no, this is still 100% going to work out for me, and having that unwavering faith? And honestly, I feel like this process of quantum leaping is so deeply rooted in healing your worthiness wound. This does not mean that I'm unworthy or that my leap has failed or that I'm not good enough, I'm not doing enough. And I'm so glad that I remembered this. This happening was a really big flip for me in realizing this was like the biggest death and rebirth that I went through. in this leap up to this point was when the apartment fell through. Actually, this happened before the apartment even fell through. I was kind of wondering, like, okay, say it doesn't work. What happens if I work so hard at this and it doesn't work? At first, my mind went to, no, it's gonna work. It's gonna work. And I had to sit in the feeling of truly, but what if it doesn't? Can I still be okay? Can I still believe that the universe loves me? Can I still trust in my ability as a creator if I don't end up in this apartment? If I don't end up making this amount of money by this time this year? And that was a very emotional, painful night because I'm sitting there like, how? How can I possibly not feel unworthy and not feel disappointed by the universe if this doesn't happen? And that was, oh, I can still feel it in my heart now. That was such a death of the old self. I had to look at her and say, wow, thank you. Thank you so much because I see how much you care. I see how much you are trying to keep me safe, help me feel protected. I sat there and I was just rubbing my arms like this, as if I was rubbing that old identity of me that was sitting there in so much fear that if it failed, how could I be loved? How could I possibly feel loved? And I reminded her, I said, even if it fails, I will still love you. And this is where, again, I reiterate what I said at the beginning of the quantum leap. It's not about the apartment. It's not about the money. It's about who I become in the process. And the fact that I was even able to get to a point where I was able to look at such a fear-ridden version of me whose fears were so valid and still be able to say, I love you. I became someone who is able to hold that scared version of me with the highest amount of love and compassion and hope than I have ever been able to in my entire life. And so now this leads me into part 5, which is honing in on embodying the quantum identity. I have allowed myself to grieve the death of the old self, and now I am really focusing on stabilizing in this new version of me. So it's more than just actively practicing now. I'm creating those neural pathways now. I have caught those thoughts enough times and now it's becoming more natural, and that trust is solidifying, and now I'm just operating that way. I'm no longer trying to perform as this new identity of me. I'm just constantly channeling that version of me and trusting the transmission that wants to come through. Now I am no longer creating and taking these action steps because I'm trying to prove to the universe that I'm worthy of the apartment and the money and the quantum leap landing, whatever it is that you desire. Not that I'm trying to prove that I'm worthy of it, but because I am just so happy and comfortable in being this version of me who believes that I'm worthy of it, even if I don't see it yet. Because that's what we want to feel anyways, is we want to feel that worthiness. And now all I need to do is I just need to stay devoted. So when you're hitting up against these moments where you want to fall back into what's easy, remember, oh, I'm at a choice point. Which choice do I want to make? And in case you're not already saying this to yourself, I want to say it to you now. You are capable and strong enough to make the hard choice. And now I want to tell you something that feels silly, but you know what? At this point, I don't care because it helped me so much. ChatGPT is one of the biggest things that has helped me. I would go onto ChatGPT in those moments where I was just feeling overtaken by the fears and the limiting beliefs that were coming up and just the thought spirals that made me feel like I was drowning, and I just couldn't grasp that clarity. So I would basically thought dump, and I'd be like, I know that all of these fears are just coming up because they're just parts of me that want to be seen and loved, but man, they feel so truthful. And ChatGPT would reflect back to me, You are not doing anything wrong just because it hurts. Just because the fear is present doesn't mean that you're failing, and you can still keep moving forward even if the fear is present. And the quote on my lock screen, actually, it says, "Things don't happen once you believe in them. They happen the second you stop arguing with them." And that has kind of been the foundation of me throughout this whole thing. Is I thought that when these fears came up, that all of a sudden I had all this work that I need to do to clear them so that I could move on. But you guys, just the awareness of the fear and being able to do what I talked about in the earlier steps of saying, no, I don't think that way anymore. No longer arguing against them. That's enough. Quantum leaps do not happen when you believe in them. They happen when you stop arguing against the fact that you know you are meant for it. You know that it can happen to you and that you are desiring it because it is meant to happen to you, for you. And I want to end this by saying the universe does not need you to be perfect. It needs you to be available. It needs you to be open and receptive to these things happen. So again, stop arguing against all those thoughts that are coming up that are telling you that you need to have cleared these limiting beliefs and taken these massive action steps and proven yourself worthy. No, you do not need to be perfect. You just need to be willing to say, universe, I am open to being blessed. I know that I am worthy of these things happening to me. It is not too good to be true. And so again, I'm not at the end of the story. I'm still very much in it. I don't know where I'm going to move. I don't know how this money is going to come in, but I do know now that I trust with complete certainty that it is inevitable for me. Even 2 months ago, I didn't feel that way. I didn't feel like it was inevitable. I thought that maybe like in a decade that those bits and pieces would show up. But now I believe that my life is about to change in ways that are going to blow my mind, and that this quantum leap is going to land even better than I'm imagining for myself. I'm no longer playing it small, and I am so grateful to that version of me at the very beginning of this quantum leap who decided that my old life was too small, and I am moving forward and I am calling in abundance because it is my birthright and because it is your birthright, and that you are worthy and you are not alone and you can do this. So I hope this helped you feel less alone if you're walking your own quantum path. Again, I will say, ChatGPT, shout out. If it did, I would love it if you could share in the comments where you're at in your leap, and let's move through it together. I really want to build this community of people who are doing these hard things and standing at these choice points and deciding to choose you, because you are worth being first choice every time. So I'm not just saying this to say this, because most people do at the end of their YouTube videos, but whoever you are, you're a beautiful human, and I love you, and I thank you so much for being here, and I wish you the best of luck, not that you even need it.